Cool. All right. Hopefully everyone is viewing my screen. I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yep.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. So no script here. I want to thank each of you for making time today to have this conversation and share your input, share your wisdom, give us some feedback. But the reason why we're here is as a board, we took a good hard look based on feedback from our members, from what we're hearing in the industry, from other associations, and again, really just like that there is this big need for education. And I wish I could say it was during my time or tenure, but it was certainly not. But I know at one point IFRA was very well known for its CHR program and setting the professional standard um, for the independent sales rep within the home furnishings industry. Um, so let me see. There we go. So why we're here? This is based on member feedback, board direction. We're looking at how we can reestablish the CHR program as a modern education and credentialing program. Um, we're looking at this for a number of different reasons. You know, the role of the rep has changed so drastically, and that change is just accelerating, right, as we continue to move along, especially now with AI and different tools. So there's been a growing need for ongoing education and practical business tools. Um, I hate to say this out loud, y'all. Please don't shoot the messenger here, but experienced reps are aging out, and fewer new young reps are entering into the field. So we feel like this is not just a way to, uh, as they say, iron sharpens iron, like share best practices and sharpen our own skills here, but we see this as a way to attract and educate the next generation of reps coming into the industry. And we want to once again be known for setting kind of setting the standard um, for the role. So again, like what we have today as a starting point. So we had some very thoughtful, generous members. They have loaned us their old CHR materials. So we were able to recover those. We've scanned them all, and we took a good hard look at what sort of the value proposition was back then. Um, the challenge is that material is over 30 years old, so it's a little dated. Um, so we really want to treat this as the foundation, but not really a finished product. The task that we're looking at here is to preserve what still matters, um, update and revise what needs to be, or what's kind of dated but still relevant, and what's missing. So what all the new components that a rep is having to deal with. You know, a rep is not just a sales professional anymore. They're also a digital marketer. I mean, they're social media experts. They're all the things. So our guiding principle is really to honor the legacy of this program, but rebuild it for modern use and adoption. Um, so what we saw in the original CHR was that it was broken up into three different sections. Phase one was really more of that marketplace fundamentals. Phase two was more about how to manage the territory and business management. And then phase three was like in person and practical application. And it was on site, I think, at what used to be High Point College, maybe back in the day. But really, what we saw here through phase one was it kind of was broken out into five different pieces: planning, persuasion and communication, problem solving techniques, um, consultant, I cannot say the word selling, and return on invested time. So, as far as the project scope, over the next 6 months, this committee that we're trying to form here is really going to be helpful in the following ways. We want to again review the original materials, retain what's relevant, revise the content that needs to be modernized, maybe remove some product or remove some content, and then add kind of those missing skills for today's marketplace, um, and then help us navigate all the other pieces of it, right? Like who should be eligible, how should this be delivered, and is it, is this something that we could use an LMS platform for versus in person? How do we price this or support the program? Things like that. So over the next 6 months, it's really to build the framework, draft the curriculum structure. If we need to identify subject matter experts, and then really the goal here would be to launch in 2027. What we need to answer when it comes to curriculum, it's really, what should every professional sales representative understand today? What practical tools should the program produce? What's some of the original CHR topics, should be considered essential and unchanged? What skills are currently missing from the rep community today? How should progress be assessed or certified? Like, should this be a certification, or maybe an ongoing knowledge base, right? That's interactive. And how often should we update the content? So program design decisions, again, who should be eligible for this? Is it independent reps only, new reps, rep agencies, sales leaders, or VPs, future reps? How do we want to deliver it? Is it online? Is it in person? Is it hybrid, self-paced, live instruction? Things like that. What does it cost? Should this be a member benefit? Should it be a discounted membership price? Or we have membership pricing and non-membership pricing and open it up? Should it be funded by sponsors and manufacturers? Does this open up questions about scholarships? And then how do we sustain it long term, right? So these are all the questions that have sort of come to the surface so far, that we're hoping that this committee could help address. What we want it to be is, we want it to be accessible. We want it to be valuable enough to matter, and structured to be sustainable over the future. There we go. So proposed work streams, ways to get involved. We're looking at, again, a curriculum roadmap, a curriculum map. What topics need to be here? What topics need to remain in the original version and to be updated? Where it says SME network, that's subject matter experts, who can teach, who can advise, or who can review. So I would love, there's a wealth of knowledge within our community by itself. I don't know how far we have to go outside of the IHFRA community to find subject matter experts, which also reinforces the value of mentorship within this community. Then when it comes to the delivery model, how participants will experience the program, funding, how does it pay for itself? And then we'll need pilots. We'll need some beta testers. And before I move on to the next slide, I mean, that's something I wanted. I'm glad Casper is here. For anyone that is on the call, we are. I'm working with Casper on a tool using the Wonder app. Casper, would you like to take a minute and quickly I'll stop sharing my screen for a second, and would you be cool to just talk about what we're doing for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially the idea behind this is to use the application that's available, which is a mobile app, that the reps can use on their phones or tablets or whatever device that they have in the field, and use it to not just deliver the training, but also deliver feedback back to you guys. There's a gamification or an incentive system that is tied to this. The application was designed primarily with the retail sales associate in mind. So it's a way for manufacturers and manufacturer reps to have access to frontline sales associates, right? And basically record training. So if you're in the store and let's say, for example, you have a new product that comes out, you can record yourself for 30, 45 seconds and then distribute that video to, I don't know, 20, 50, 100 retailers of yours, and every single RSA that has the app, they can get that. So the initial conversation with Steve was, and Cynthia as well, who's on the call as well. So we met and we essentially said, okay, we want to make this available for free for anybody that basically is tied to IFRA one way or another, right? So if you as an IFRA rep that should be a benefit. There's a reason why we want every single rep to join IFRA, right? Because at the end of the day, we need the reps to stick around. We need to make sure that the brands there's enough pressure there in order to try to find ways around the rep. So the idea behind this is to say, okay, how do we make the rep so sticky? And in order to do that, we need to find technology that doesn't replace the rep, but actually makes the rep better and gives them a way or gives him or her, a way of scaling the information that is in people's heads, right? There's a lot of tribal knowledge and a lot of institutional knowledge that is sitting in between those ears of every single independent rep. And it's hard to get that out there in the field. And then when the reps retire, that knowledge dies with them essentially. So what we want to do is we want to say, okay, let's give the reps this tool, give them access to the front line, and train these people in the store. And the early pilots that we did with a couple top 100s, Royal Furniture in Memphis is one of them. The main feedback that came back from them is that they said, "Hey, this is almost like having a direct line to our representatives when they're not here physically in the store." Right. And that was so powerful. There was such a powerful feedback coming from the retailer. So it's not about, oh, we don't need the rep. We have the app here. No, it's like having a direct line to the rep, right? So it reinforces that relationship. So that was the basically the nucleus of that conversation. Then Cynthia and I met, Steve and I met, and we said, okay, how do we bring the idea of CHR into this application and basically say, okay, it can live alongside, right? It's also basically a way of using the same methodology or the same idea of the application, just for a slightly different purpose. So the target audience is not the RSA. In this case, the target audience is actually the independent sales rep. And then we just use that vehicle, which is, that's what it is. It's a channel, it's a vehicle in order to get the content out, in order to get feedback back to IFRA or to the committee. And then also, obviously, we can gamify it. We can add whatever it is, if it's a certification or a badge or points or, they earn something and then they can level up and they get better and better. That's also for the competitive nature that reps usually have. So it helps with that as well. So long story short, I'm sorry that was more than a minute, Steve. I apologize. But long story short was we wanted to say, hey, we have this beautiful vehicle, we have this platform that we've already developed. Why reinvent the wheel? Why don't we use what we have? And then instead of monetizing it on the side, why don't we stick true to our pledge that we did many, many years ago, where we said we never want to charge the reps for anything that we do, right? The monetization needs to either come from the retailer or it needs to come from the brand, but it should never come from the rep. So that's the idea. We just want to make it available.
Thanks, Casper. Um, so all that being said, the whole purpose of this call, this committee, and I know we have some board members on the call, past presidents on the call. I'm so incredibly grateful for that. Is to see, one, is there interest? Is this viable? Do we? What are the non-negotiables? Right, like what absolutely needs to be included, but how do our existing members have a desire to for ongoing education, and what are some of the ways that we feel like this would be digestible? Kim or Cynthia, you guys have been involved with this, or Mike, current board members, Sam. Anything you guys would want to add to what we've shared so far, and then we'll kind of open it up for discussion.
I just quickly want to say, just to round up what Casper was talking about, that he's talking about the method of getting the work or the training out, right? And not necessarily the training itself. And so, it's a fantastic idea and very forward thinking, and I think it's wonderful. But the training itself of what this encompasses, what do we feel? Do we feel at all? First of all, I think we need to understand, do we need a CHR program is the biggest question. And we've got manufacturers here, we have reps here. So both sides, is there a need? We feel there is, but we need to know a general consensus if there is. And secondly, going through that old material, finding out what's still important. A lot of it is very much important because it is a relationship industry, but then also adding the technology part. And so building that outline of that Steve has outlined in those streams. And then, of course, making subcommittees, I guess, is what we're probably looking at, Steve. So that if there's an area that you're very interested in and not so much other, that we kind of slot you into where you want to be. So that, because right now, obviously, we've got to get through the curriculum part of it and figure out. So I feel like I would like to hear a discussion of, is this needed? How badly is this needed? And then who it's needed for exactly. Is it for, because a 30-year rep is not, I feel like this is not something other than maybe continuing education. Some parts of the curriculum they would be very interested in. But I personally have a 21-year-old that in another year will be in this industry in sales, and I want to have a curriculum for him. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at, is what does this look like for those folks coming on board? But that's all.
Well, let's do that. Steve, if you don't mind going through the list of everybody's on this amazing call, and if we could get everybody's, feedback within a minute, like get your reactions to it. And then let's go from there. What do you think, Kim?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. First name I see on the list is Mr. Bruns. Bob, what's your take on this? Do we feel like there's still a need for CHR? You bring a unique perspective.
Yeah. First off, I wanted to say thank you for doing this meeting, Steve, and the group, and Mark and Harvey. Long time since we've chatted. Good seeing you.
Mm-hmm.
The question becomes, from my perspective, is who's really the core customer for this program? You asked if it's needed. I wouldn't be on the call if I didn't think it wasn't needed. But in looking back, what in previous education programs that some of us were involved in, we started with trying to understand who our customer was. And who is our customer? Is our customer the independent rep? Is it the exclusive rep? Is it anybody that's willing to pay us money? I mean, really, we have to define that first. And I believe, like Kimberly does, that there's an opportunity here for everybody, but especially the young people. I have two daughters in the business. One's 31 and one's 34. They're both highly educated, but they have no clue, frankly. And I love them both, and they've been in the business 6 years and 10 years with us, but they really don't understand some of the basic skill sets necessary to do this because they came from a different place.
Okay.
And so what I see that we're trying to accomplish, I think that there's a great need for it. I think that we've got some really bright people on this call that can put a program together. But I think understanding who our target is first is a huge priority. And so with that, I'll go ahead and let whoever wants to speak next.
Thank you, Bob. The next name I see is actually it's a Samsung.
You're in a car.
And you're in a car.
That's me.
Oh, I see you.
It's Karen Craig.
Hey, Karen.
Uh, you know, I wanted to be on this call and I appreciate the opportunity. We do need a CHR program, but it's not necessarily the young people. It might even be the unknown sales managers across our industry. I don't know that they even have a common goal for helping us as a rep. And I work for companies that didn't even know CHR existed. So I would think your first audience might be the manufacturers who show it market and spend lots of money trying to help us learn. They want to learn our customer and they want to know who they're selling. So the CHR program could help reps know how to talk to the sales managers, and the sales managers know how to help us help the retailer. And I do think that mentorship is something we could all learn to help and help each other more. And I know retailers don't understand what reps do, so maybe some of that can be including retailers in how they want their salespeople trained. Yeah. So there's lots of opportunities, but there is a big group out there that we're not talking to, and that's the manufacturer.
I like having a sector into that management and independent businesses and representatives and how that works together and how we can help each other. That's a really good point.
So Karen, if you don't mind, I'd like to weigh in. Last time that IHFRA had a CHR program, the program frankly was taken to the independent furniture rep, and the independent furniture rep did not engage with the program because of the cost.
Right.
So what, Karen, so what happened next was, instead of targeting the independent furniture rep, and some of us were on this call were involved in this, we actually targeted the manufacturer, to your point, Karen. And we targeted specifically Ashley and Lazy Boy and Berkline and Benchcraft and another handful. And we were able to convince the management of those various companies to fund this because they had the need of educating and training their sales reps, even though they were exclusive. And so that was actually the genesis of the original CHR, or the last CHR program. I won't say the original one, the last CHR program. And because it was funded by the manufacturers, then we also had probably around, I'm guessing, 100 independent furniture reps that also took the CHR program at a particular time. That 3 to 5 year time frame, we had about somewhere around 800 to 1,000 sales reps go through the program, and that would have been from 93 to 98. And then, for all practical purposes, 98, the CHR program stopped. Anyway, just a little history.
Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Karen.
Sure.
Next, Bill Munn, if you've got anything you'd like to add, we'd love your thoughts on this.
Well, first of all, I've been in this business now for 50 years, and so I'm not long on the not saying I'm retiring tomorrow, but I got about 5 good years left of me, so I'm not looking for and I would obviously like to learn from a program like this, and there's always room to sharpen the saw. But one thing I would say I've been in for the business for 50 years. I was in the retail side for 30, and now on the wholesale side as an independent rep for 20 years. And one thing that I would stress to any person getting into this business is a whole paradigm shift of who they work for. They work for the stores. The stores that I call on are the ones that sign my paycheck. And as much as I have respect for the manufacturers I represent, and I represent several, they're not the ones that pay me. The customers are the ones that pay me. And they reward me if I have products that I can get them on a timely basis. If I take care of their problems when they have them, I can give them answers on ETAs. I can provide product that they can make margin on. That's all, but I'm working on their behalf. I go out and try to find lines that will meet their needs, and if they don't, quite frankly, I don't have time for them. I don't try to get my retailers, because I was in their shoes for 30 years. It doesn't do me any good to get something on their floor that I know in my heart's not going to turn. So I want to make sure that they know I'm on their side 100%, and they know that. And to be honest with you, I have people that'll buy everything I have in my bag if I treat them well. So the first thing that any independent rep needs to know is who they work for, who signs their check. So yeah, I know they have to report to sales managers, and we've got to provide reports of what we're doing. But it all gets back to how we're treating the customers that we call on, and there are fewer and fewer of them. So if we, and the whole thing is, if they alienate some of these customers and fail on one of the lines that they're representing, the customer won't buy anything from them. So, and that also hurts the company they're working for, the companies that they're working for. So, like I say, from my perspective, it's all about the retailer. I haven't been one for 30 years. And that's one of the reasons that I've done well and what I've done, to be honest with you, because people know that I've been in their shoes and respect what they're doing. They're my heroes. I call them that all the time. So that's the perspective I'd be coming from, and it may not be what you want to hear, but that's my my passion, so to speak, is that they're the ones that pay all our bills. You know, even as a manufacturer, if you don't have something that they're going to buy and treat them properly, they have other options. They're not going to buy from you. So as a rep, that's my passion, is taking care of the retailers.
That's right.
I'd like to interject at this moment, Bill, that in today's marketplace, the designers have, by number, have taken over the retailers. There's fewer and fewer retailer stores, per se, but the designers, a good portion of them do have their own little boutiques or an online store running across more and more. So the designer element, I think, is equally, if not more important than the retail store today. So I just wanted to interject that, and appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Steve, this is Jeff Schwal. Could I pipe in about now?
Sure thing.
Say, I haven't seen some of these people. Bob, I think I remember when he was a rep too, but I was very active in 1986 at the Maryland DC Club, sponsored some people to go to the Conference Colorado, they called it. And at that point, I learned about Breeze software for reps. I learned about the CHR program Frank Galbraith had authored. And I came back gung-ho, trying to sell it to my chapter. We formed a group, and Mr. Galbraith actually came and taught us for 3 days. To the earlier point Bob made, it cost me $300 out of my pocket back then. And in the late 80s, that was a lot of money to me as an independent contractor. I bought a computer, NEC laptop. I bought from Julie Bruder the Breeze software. So I'm really dating myself now. And I went after it hard. And I enjoyed earning my CHR. In fact, me and a couple other guys taught the course independently years later. Before I moved into management, I crossed the evil bridge in the mid 90s.
Hey.
I know. And I went to work for a very good company. I started as a rep for them. It was Dixie Furniture when I started. Henry Link, Taylor, and Young Hinkle. In fact, I think Bob, we might have met on the road years ago.
Yeah.
But that being said, I was part of the group that was trying to sell the manufacturers when we were trying to move it. We were moving the course to High Point because I was a gung-ho believer in it. And it was a tough sell. I mean, Lexington, they didn't want to spend a nickel on anything that would benefit a rep. So that was, I failed miserably there. Although we did have some Lexington reps that did get a CHR. But I think the key is we're not attracting new people to our business. I, like a lot of you, have had children try. They had no formal training. There isn't a Broyhill program that there used to be the trainees reps, or a Simmons program that used to be the trained great reps. There's a need for some sort of training program to convince and attract younger people and mid-age people, to educate them better. Because Harvey said the key. I mean, even today in my position, the customer pays me. I work for the retailer. If they're not buying my product, And if I don't study their floor, I had an opportunity recently at pre-market to pitch a friend of mine who's got some stores here in the Carolinas. He liked my line. I went and looked at his store, and I decided I wouldn't sell it to him. It wouldn't fit his mix. I studied his customer. He's a combination of appliance store. He sells motion. I don't have motion. I had some nice stationary upholstery, and I backed down because I looked at it saying, I don't want to just sell him a one-time sale. Mm-hmm. And that's today's young person. They don't see. My son, he wanted to make the deal. He didn't care about the long-term relationship. He didn't know how to build the deal. And I think that's what we need to, there's some very necessary basic things from Frank Galbraith's original notebook. I wish my basement hadn't flooded and I lost it. But there's some really good basics that need to be identified. And then the new stepping into the AI and how it can help you, how you can make better presentations. I mean, I'm all for this thing, and I'm no spring chicken either, but I'd like to attract some more young people into this business. And, the worst thing I've done in the last 10 years of working for smaller companies is find reps that I think are good and find out later. I mean, when a rep doesn't return your phone call as a manager, not only as a customer, but as a manager, I don't get it. I mean, something's got to change, but I'm done preaching, but I'm all in favor of carrying this forward.
All right. Well,
hey,
look,
Steve,
I'll say amen to everything you had to say.
Yeah.
Steve, this is Mark Craven. I'd like to.
You were next on my list, Mark.
I remember Jeff. Jeff was. I took the course right after Jeff. You remember Frank Rationale?
Yep.
Frank recruited me, but I took the original Frank Galbraith course, and then I went to my first IHFRA conference in Chicago. It's where I met Bob Bruns. Bob was very involved, obviously, in the creation of the next course, and I was all in too. I took that course in '94, again in '97. I became VP of Sales at Fairfield in '05, and we revived it. It was kind of in shackles at that point, but we pulled those guys back out of the attic, and they brushed up their skills, and we did it again with my group. But all that being said, I'm retired now. I was a rep for 20 years. My father was a rep for 52 years. It's in my blood. So when I went into management, I went into management with the sales rep's mindset. And so I managed the company and managed the sales force with the rep's mindset. And we were very successful as a result of that. Someone mentioned that it's all about the retailers. I think that obviously they're our customer. And understanding them and their needs and so forth is very important, but it's also important to understand how you link manufacturers' needs and their capabilities with retailers, and you provide that link. You're the vital link. The rep is the vital link between the retailer and the manufacturer, and understanding both is very important because it helps the rep advise the retailer and not waste that retailer's time by saying, hey, look, they're not able to do this. Let's as you pointed out, Jeff, that program wasn't going to work for that retailer. So it's important, and I appreciate Bill's comments on that, but I think it's very important that sales reps understand the link that they provide. And so understanding what the needs of a retailer are and understanding what the needs of the retailer, manufacturer are, those are great content, great part of the curriculum. What are those? They're ever changing, obviously. And so that's why this program can be dynamic and it can be ongoing. And I think that's one of the problems we had with the CHR program. It didn't evolve. It didn't continue. And I think a lot of that had to do with funding. Also had a lot to do with personnel as Bob kind of went on his way. I mean, Bob was the champion of the course and the engine behind it. And as his needs moved on, he wasn't able to keep doing that. And there wasn't a lot anybody really that had the same kind of not just passion, but understanding um, and an ability to make that program, great as Bob and his team did. But and I was a benefactor of all that, and I'm much appreciated because it helped my career. I would say, and I'm just adding to what has already been said, but I will say the reason why I'm on this call, I'm retired. I don't really have skin in the game, except, I would like to think that what I did in my career mattered. I tried to approach my business from the standpoint of enhancing those that I came in contact with, whether it was a retailer, manufacturer rep, um, and you'd like to think that the 40 years you spent in the business, it mattered. It mattered to people. And in order for it to matter, it has to kind of continue, right? So whatever I have, whatever tribal knowledge that I have, experience that I have, or whatever, um, it would it would be fun for me to just be involved in seeing the program kind of move along. I'm not a teacher, but I certainly could advise, what kind of things a rep ought to be doing, and just good old block and tackling stuff, simple stuff that I've heard kids just don't know. I've got a college graduate myself. He's clueless. He thinks he knows everything, but he really doesn't. But that I was the same way. And so it does training is, I think, very important. I think if the industry is going to continue to have independent manufacturers and independent reps, they've got to be sharp, and they got to have something in their bag that they're not just showing up twiddling their thumbs or wasting time, that they're adding value. And so I think the CHR program is valuable and should continue.
So if I may make one comment about what Mark said, thank you, Mark, for the accolades. But I just loved doing what I did back then and still do. But you made a comment about the business of being a rep. And I think that we should consider the approach on this is that we, as a rep, we run a business. We're not just selling things. We're not just training. We're not just answering phone calls. We're running a 5 million or a 10 million or 20 million, or like Mike Root, $100 million business, right, Mike? A substantial business. And as I look at our sales team, we call them sales consultants, we look at them as business partners, not reps. I treat, and our company, our management team treats our sales consultants the same way they treat our customers, our dealers. We treat our vendors, our dealers, and our sales consultants exactly the same because they're business partners, and it's a different approach, and it works for us. But in the long-term strategy of this, I think it's important, at least from my perspective, that we look at this as an education program about the business of being a rep and treat this, how do we can consult with our IHFRA reps, independent or exclusive, and help them manage their business and make their businesses flourish.
I agree. And I think one of the courses that was probably the most important course, as it turned out, was the Al Bates course, because what it taught the rep was how you and your line affected the bottom line for the retailer, and what activities, what products, and so forth that helped you enhance. If you could show the retailer that the products that you were selling him, they were buying from you, were producing superior results, it made it easy for that retailers to say, we need to buy more from that guy. We need to put more on the floor from that guy, because it was in black and white. If I was producing 500 a square foot and that store was doing 350 a square foot, it was a no-brainer for that guy to say, we need more of that stuff that we're making 500 a foot on. And and as Bob pointed out, that's a business mindset. And so taking that business mindset to the retailer and to the manufacturer and saying, hey, we need to make this a product that we're selling this retailer achieve superior results for them. As Bill pointed out, it needs to turn. Well, it not just needs to turn, but there are a lot of other things that go into affecting the bottom line. And for a sales rep to understand that and be taught that, that's hugely valuable. Is that still relevant today,
Yes.
Bob?
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah. Bottom line's always relevant.
Yeah. So those are and I think that, I think it was Karen that pointed out, you've got younger people that are, wanting to come in the business, or we need them to come to the business, and they just don't understand it. And that's why they go to school. We could teach them stuff, but they're going to learn a lot more in school. They would learn a lot more if there were relevant curriculum for them specific to the industry that they're in and the job that they're doing. And so, the IFRA, as the representing the reps, that allows you to pull your resources, go to the manufacturers, but you have a bigger pool of people to be able to sell this tool to than if a manufacturer just did it. And Bob pointed out that was kind of the key. We went to manufacturers and said, hey, look, you guys need training, and we can provide it for them. And they jumped on board. They didn't like the cost necessarily, but and that perpetuating thing, that thing that would keep it going. I think that was a shame that we weren't able to do that, because it was kind of a one and done situation. Manufacturers would pay for it. They'd send their rep to the course, and they're like, okay, we're done. You guys, go apply it now. But as you know, people need reinforcing, and they need a continuous. That's why I go to church. It's not like I haven't read this stuff or heard it before, but it needs reinforcing.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Well, and I hear, Mark, the longevity of it, and we can build that into the business model of this structure. Who is our ideal customer? Who are our secondary customers, the retailers, the manufacturers, all of this. And I really hear that longevity piece. So thank you for that.
Well, one other thing I'd like to point out that I got lost in. So in the tail end, when I took the course, there were a lot of powerful reps. We used to say the line carried the rep, or the rep carried the line. Mm-hmm. If you were a Lexington rep, if you were a Benchcraft rep, Universal rep, Berkeley, you had a big base of business and you had one line to learn. What happened in the 90s, as I was part of what we like to laugh about, the Masco fiasco, along with several other things that happened, is the reps were forced to become more independent contractors. Lexington, you couldn't carry another line. Ashley is probably the only one left that you can. We need to somehow address with the reps how to manage their business in their package. The worst mistake, I interview reps, and Harvey pointed this out. There's design-oriented reps, and there's a ton of business out there. I have to go the other way because I work for a company now that can't ship to a designer. We have to ship in quantity. We can't service them, but as a manager, you start interviewing reps and you realize you just ask them casually because everybody's got multiple lines. And you look at some of these packages and you're going, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. You're calling on this kind of customer base and you want to apply for a line that has no business selling it. The reps today, the young people, or even the middle-aged people that have been in this for a while, need some help aligning their packages. I mean, the last I had, not picking on anybody in particular, but I had acquired 5 good reps that worked for Hillsdale during the Hillsdale time. The proximity of my showroom was right by theirs. And what happened when Hillsdale decided to close, I watched 5 really good reps scramble looking for how many other lines they had to pick up and then set down. And of that 5, I think I have 1 left because they were jumping at so many other things. Somebody needs to, it's like going to college. The CHR needs to address how to train a rep to build the right package for himself or herself, and call on the right trade base. If you've got a lamp line, you can call on 50 million designers, and you've got a high-end case goods line, all that kind of makes sense. But if you've got a container only line, and you're trying to call on designers, that's not going to go very far. And that somehow needs to be taught because it seems to have eroded as all these big, powerful companies closed up and don't have exclusive sales forces anymore.
And I think we can take the angle of the data and the financial of the business model. And part of that mix is who you're partnering with, the payment schedule, the velocity, all of that goes into play. And ideally making your own ideal customer profile and what target market do you want to go after as your independent business. And it could be very data-driven and financial as well.
As it should be.
Yeah.
I think
As it
Bob
should be, Bob.
pointed,
As it should be.
Bob pointed out, that he considers his sales reps business consultants. And I think, Jeff, this kind of points to what you're saying. One thing I found, and I think and I learned a great deal from Bob as far as this is concerned, just watching him work with retailers and manufacturers alike, that Bob was really a partner. He wasn't a rep. And his advice to both retailer and to manufacturer was spot on. And so they depended on him. And so that was something that I took note of and said, I need to do that. And so, when you become a business partner, and this kind of points to what Jeff is saying, you can't be a business partner to somebody if you got a bunch of lines that don't make sense. You have to have the right, you have to understand your customer, and you have to understand the manufacturers you're working for, and you have to be able, as Bob aptly pointed out, be a business partner, truly. And so that the rep isn't this, low man on the totem pole and a necessary evil, but a vital part of the transaction. And that is a great responsibility that the rep has to take on because, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a partner in this thing? Well, if you do, then you got to step up. You got to step up with your knowledge, your skills, your investment in time and resources. That's equal to, if you're a partner, equal to the manufacturer and the retailer. And then it takes a whole different dynamic. The relationship between the retailer and the manufacturer and the rep takes on a whole different dynamic. There's leverage, and the rep needs leverage, but that's earned.
Okay, I'm going to interject real quick, and just knowing that we had scheduled this initial call for about an hour, we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure I give everyone else an opportunity to share any feedback, share any thoughts. But just generally speaking, I feel like we've heard a lot of alignment when it comes to the core principles of why we're here, right? And what really matters. Is there anyone that maybe has a different opinion, or that feels like, hey, this is a great idea, but we need to do it a little different? Maybe it doesn't need to be a formalized certification or educational program, or do we all feel like we're kind of on the right track here?
Let me try and address some of that, Steve. The Sam mentioned about being data driven, and the first thing we initiated talking about was funding. And I think that the first thing that we need to come up with is how this is going to be financed and how's it going to be going forward in terms of GM ROI. In other words, cash flow to maintain the program going forward. Because I think all of us here are interested in the future, whether it's for ourselves, our children, or the industry. And so we have to look forward in terms of the funding first, how that can be accomplished, and then knowing that we have a financial base to work from. I think that'll help us a lot in terms of the curriculum and certification programs. A couple of things that came to mind to me. I have a daughter who's involved in educational psychology, and she does very well. One of the things she did was she created a program through one of the local universities in Philadelphia. And so when they had this certification program, part of the letterhead or on that program was that university. And that certification then meant a lot more to everybody because of its tie to the university. And in fact, some of the courses that she taught, at least one lecture per month, was at the university's facilities. And so that really tied it together really well. And that also helped in terms of funding. So I'm just throwing that concept out to you so that maybe High Point University would be interested in doing something to help us with this and either reduce some of our costs and or help us in terms of funding.
I think that Nito Cobain is he's an unbelievable fundraiser, and he's a passionate guy. Somehow you could bring him on board, and him say, you know what, I think it's a great idea, and we'd like to be involved. Then to Harvey's point, you're right. I mean, the thing is, all conceptually, I think it's all good, and everybody's in agreement. This is important. It's necessary. It would be great for IFRA. But when the rubber meets the road, somehow you got to pay for it, and the quality of the course is only going to be as good as the instructors that you have. And to Harvey's point, you could put, if CHR meant something and IFRA meant something, you'd put it all over your letterhead and so forth. Just as if you graduated from Harvard or Yale or wherever, you'd want people to know that, right? So, but that comes because of the prestige and the quality of the curriculum and where you got it from. So I think Harvey made a good suggestion that High Point University might be a very solid place to look.
Well, just to speak for Steve too, I know I've independently have had discussions with the economics department there, the business school there at High Point. I live right here. Steve has also had some discussions with them. Just know that High Point University is not a public university and will charge greatly for whatever programming that we want to work with through them. They are not cheap. And so they very interested in continuing education type credit accreditation in the discussions I've had with them. But I think there's a lot of ways to include it. And I absolutely agree with Harvey and Mark both that having that name tied to it would mean a lot. And of course, they're already so involved in the furniture industry that it makes perfect sense. It's just at that point, the manufacturers become very important to us because then it becomes expensive. And so, we really have to, think through that whole thing. Just using their facilities, that would be an amazing thing. But yeah, they're also pushing the curriculum that we need for the furniture industry, as does NC State right here, by the way, which, especially in textiles. So I definitely think right there in that North Carolina area, there's some higher education folks that would be very welcoming to us.
Yeah, if I could
do
just
think if you were to have the manufacturers on board with this program, it would add a lot more validity to it. Just going back to like what their brand represents and also to what they're looking for in reps. Like I know I speak a little bit out of place because I do work in corporate for a manufacturer, but there are a lot of pain points that I feel like the manufacturers don't necessarily get to convey to the sales reps all the time, and vice versa, the sales reps to the manufacturers. I do think if, we speak to some of these manufacturers that we want to target, it would also help build out that curriculum. I know for my company, we're extremely data focused. Like the way like I approach my customers is very much so, what is your return per dollar that you're spending with us? It's, of course, product matters for sure, but it's an investment at the end of the day. Putting boutiques on the floor, putting products on the floor, ordering containers, even if you're selling it to a customer, if it gets returned, all these issues, I do think the manufacturer can shed a lot of light on. And two, it would also give data to the rep so that they can make informative decisions when they're talking to their customers.
I'm gonna ask one more quick question, and I'm gonna ask it maybe toward or direct it to the folks who have been through CHR in the past. Um, the way I understand the program, it was, we'll call it three sections, right? And some of it, I believe, was self-paced, and then some of it was in person, and it was we'll say like lecture style classroom setting, and then interactive training, amongst your peers. How important is the in-person lesson when we're talking about funding and financing it? Could some of it be done online using an LMS, things like that, with a piece of it being in person, right? Is that, how did it work, and is that still the preferred methodology? Is there value in having that in-person interaction, an in-person classroom setting?
Oh, I would look at this group and say predominantly we're old school, and old school is face to face. I was in Miami yesterday and met with some large customers down there, prospective customers. And I will tell you, and I do Zoom calls every day like everybody else does with customers. There's nothing like being directly in front of another individual. What you get out of that is different than what we're doing right now. And hey, this is great that we're able to do what we're doing here. But what we did with the last CHR program, the last big one, was we had 5 or 6 modules. We had extremely good talent that taught the modules. We did it all at one time. We did it, and I'm not suggesting we do that next, but we did it in a week. It was a big investment, time, energy, and money, but it was effective. So I think that some hybrid of in-person, Zoom, online, could also be as, if not even more effective. But I think it's important to be directly in front of people and have the interaction, because going forward, I think the way we do business, it will continue to change, and we will have our meetings like this more and more. But I got more done yesterday in person than I would have in 3 or 4 or 5 meetings that I would have done in Zoom. So that's my thoughts.
We have the unique opportunity of having twice a year all of the reps in High Point. I could see a package of maybe one of us offered to share our showroom and have an evening meeting or an early morning meeting, have a combination of virtual, whether they're Google Teams, Microsoft Teams, whatever, or Zoom calls. But twice a year, we've got all the reps. And if those of us that had maybe a big enough showroom could host for an hour and a half one evening, get everybody together to go over this. I think a combination of that, because I agree with Bob, there's nothing like, you can do a lot, communication of information over a Zoom call, but actually seeing the reaction of when somebody is understanding or not, there's nothing to be right in front of them or all together. Nothing like it.
Okay, thank you. I want to open up for just another minute or so for anyone else that wants to share any comments, thoughts, feedback, and then we'll wrap up today, just to be respectful of everyone's time. And I'm going to drop in the chat just a link to a short interest survey. Just if there are ways that if any of this resonated with you, just ways that you can contribute, or if you'd be interested in serving in some capacity. And we'll kind of use that as a starting point and figure out where to take this next. But I'm going to drop that into the chat now. And if someone will humor me and just click on that link and just make sure that the survey opens, I would genuinely appreciate that. But with that, I'll thank you. I'll open it up and just ask if there's any other comments.
This is Karen, and I love that y'all are talking about this. I'm going to add the University of Mississippi to that list. I have talked to them over the last 3 years in their base marketing, which is data resourcing and things like that. I think they would be very approachable to being part of this CHR program. And I can initiate the commentary if you want me to. I was in that first CHR group way back with Frank Galbraith. I was out of college less than 5 years. It certainly made a lot of difference in my career. And the people that I took that course with are very professional and have exceeded any expectation they had in their money making. So I think accountability is very important in this CHR program. And if you can get it large enough that it could be regional or at the High Point market or pre-market, I feel like that would be a plus. But there are a lot of sales managers that don't even know CHR existed. So I feel like we really have to target the factories and manufacturers and vendors for a lot of future for your financing. And thank you for the opportunity.
Steve, I think there's a lot of stakeholders that, should be considered. The state of High Point, for example, and the market, if it wasn't for the interior designers, in terms of volume of traffic, because it's such a fragmented industry, but, you don't have that many, independent brick and mortar stores. They continue to go by the wayside for whatever reason. There are lots of them, but the interior designers that have been attracted, there's a lot of effort from High Point, the market authority, and so forth, and manufacturers to bring them in, and so and that's important to the rep, right? And it's important to the manufacturer, but it's also important to High Point, the High Point Market Authority. So when I was president of IHFRA, my mission was to connect retailers, manufacturers, and reps, and us all get in the same room. All stakeholders get in the same room. Let's talk about, figure out how we can partner and make, this industry better so that we lift everybody up. And so that was my focus, and I think we made some progress there. But as any progress, if it doesn't continue and there's not continuing effort there. But Steve, from your experience, there are a lot of stakeholders that may be interested in being involved in this, that you don't know until you reach out to them. Whether it's Nito Cobain or whoever's running the High Point Market Authority. So in terms of being able to fund this thing or create curriculum or assist in the curriculum. But I will say from my experience and what I can remember about the moving from Frank Galbraith to the last version, and Bob could speak to this, but there was a tremendous amount of wrangling. And it was difficult to get everybody on board with this. And I think what Bob ended up with, the assistance of Kelly Crisco, who at the time was running IHFRA, was in your shoes. They said, you know what? It's herding cats here. Let's go to who's employing these reps. And then they'll force them to come. And there were a lot of reps who didn't like going to the course, but they had to because the manufacturer said you're going. As it turns out, it's kind of like a parent saying, hey, you're going to school, or hey, you're going to church, or hey, what? They didn't like being told to do it, but once they did it, they found out, you know what, this is pretty good. The people like me and Karen and others who were not compelled by manufacturers, probably Jeff, were not compared by the manufacturer, but went because they saw the benefit of it. Boy, those are the folks that so all these independent guys, if you can pull them along, but you got to somehow fund the thing and get it off the ground. And that may take some, investments from the various stakeholders. And I think the stakeholders are just broader than we might think.
Well, the first stakeholder is going to be IHFRA. IHFRA has to decide what type of funds they're willing to invest to seed this program, because you're not going to bring in any revenue until we have a product. And I assume, as this whole group, that we would sell this product to, whether it's manufacturer or an independent rep. We have to have a compelling product that we can take to these manufacturers and our own membership. But to do that, we're going to have to fund it. It's going to cost some money. The terrific thing is that the last several years that Steve and Ray and the leadership of IHFRA have done a terrific job at building a war chest for IHFRA. And I'll just, because I know we're closing, but I'd like to just share that this is the International Home Furnishing Representatives Association. I've spent most of my career as an integral part of that. And building this organization, and Ray and Steve took it to another level with the leadership, our rep leadership along with that. And that war chest also needs to benefit the membership.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. And so you all do with that what you choose to.
Yeah.
But I think that IHFRA is positioned to do some great things.
Well, let's get it into momentum. If everybody can make sure you fill out the form, let Steve know. We'll have a steering committee. We'll have little kind of like doing and breakout work committees. We need many hands to make light work on this. And we don't want this to come out in 3 years. Let's put some urgency behind it so that we can get a great start. And I think that's where we're at. And we can finance it in many, many different ways. And we're in a very good position to look at lots of options. So it's great.
So it'll be
Also
interesting.
reach out to former reps former CHRs who may want to, just as my alma mater, I send them some money every year just because, it was important to me. There may be folks like me who would say, you know what, it's worthwhile. And I like the people who are trying to make this thing happen. I believe in them, and you send them some money. So you may be able to, get some money. I don't know how much, but you may be able to get some money from folks like me and Bob and others who benefited from the program and like to see it continue. I
We can
mean,
be very
I think
creative.
just
I love
like
that part.
Bob, it had so much invested in this,
Yeah.
in IFRA, and it meant so much to our development and our continuous development and our success. But there was the relationships in the end. It was the relationships that were so valuable, and that we want to see that pass on to the next generation, or at least I do. And however I can assist in that, I'd like to.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is just the beginning, right? This is why we wanted to have this call, and this will probably be one of many, just by the nature of it, right? It's not a short term project. It's going to be large. It's going to be a big undertaking, and we want to get, like Sam said, many hands make light work, and there's a lot of opinion on this, a lot of thought that needs to go into it. And we want to do it right. Like I said, we said it up top. It's honoring the legacy of that original program and the foundation of it, and what it stood for, what it meant, and what it taught the folks who took it, and how can we modernize it and make it relevant today. So, knowing that we're already 15 minutes over, I think we should probably call it for today. But I would love for you guys to fill out that survey if you can. If you didn't get a chance to speak and had some comments, feel free to reach out to me directly, or we can set up a time to connect over the next couple of days. And because I'd value that feedback as well. And we'll get another time and call set up here in the near future, and we'll keep this moving. But very grateful for everyone to make the time today.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve. Great meeting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
See you, Bob.
Yeah.